Welcome back to Mad Medicine. In this lecture, we're going to be discussing alpha thalassemias. Now, if you guys don't know, on our YouTube channel, you can find our Heme-Onc playlist for step 1, high-yield content reviews, so go check it out. And while you're there, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And with that being said, let's talk about microcytic anemias. Microcytic anemias are a type of anemia where you have an MCV that is going to be less than 80, and it's going to present with a smaller red blood cell than normal. Now, this can be defined based off of defective heme synthesis or defective globin chains. And essentially what you have is you have hemoglobin, which is composed of either heme or you have globin chains. Now, if at any point any portion of this gets messed up, you're going to have defective or wonky hemoglobin, and that can lead to microcytic anemia. Now, we've already discussed the defective heme synthesis issues like iron deficiency, lead poisoning, sideroblastic anemia in our previous videos. We're going to talk about anemia chronic disease later, but today we are going to be focusing right here, defective globin chains. Specifically, we are going to be discussing alpha thalassemia. That is what we're talking about, the globin chain portion of hemoglobin development. So let's talk about alpha thalassemia. Alpha thalassemia is a hereditary hemoglobin disorder that occurs on the alpha chain, and the alpha globin chain is going to have gene deletions that are leading to alpha thalassemia. Now, the severity of the disease is going to depend on the number of gene deletions. Now, the globin chains are made up of two pairs. Recall from previous videos and from previous physiology that you have hemoglobin in different forms. So you have hemoglobin A1, sorry, I start with A1. In adults, you have hemoglobin A2 also in adults, and then you also have hemoglobin F. Hemoglobin A1 is going to be this right here. You're going to have 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains. In hemoglobin A2, you're going to have 2 alpha chains, but you're going to have 2 delta chains. And in hemoglobin F, you're going to have 2 alpha chains, but 2 gamma chains. That is what's happening. So this is what the globin chains are made up of. These little pleated sheets right here is what the globin chains look like, and these green molecules are heme. Now, the alpha thalassemia genes are located on chromosome 16. There are 4 genes. That means you have 4 main types of gene deletions. So let's talk about the first type of gene deletion called alpha thalassemia minima. In this case, you're going to have 1 gene deletion. That is what is causing alpha thalassemia minima, and at the end of the day, in this condition, you're not really going to have any anemia present, but you are going to have a silent carrier state, and that's probably the highest yield thing to remember from alpha thalassemia minima, other than the fact that it is a single gene that's being deleted from the gene pool that you have. And there is also going to be normal red blood cell production. These patients are going to be asymptomatic. They're going to present completely normally. Then you have alpha thalassemia minor, in which you're going to have 2 gene deletions, and you can either have a trans deletion where the deletions are going to be on the opposite side, and this is mainly going to affect African Americans, or you can have a cis deletion, which are going to be on the same side, and this mainly affects Asians, and there's going to be a higher risk for offsprings in this type of gene deletions. The offsprings of Asians are going to be, or patients who have cis gene deletions in alpha thalassemia minor are going to have a higher risk of developing alpha thalassemia. These patients are going to present with mild microcytic hyperchromatic anemia, but for the most part, they're still going to be able to function normally in their day-to-day lives. So the alpha thalassemia minima and minor are very, either no symptoms to very mild symptoms that are occurring. And the next gene deletion occurs with 3 genes, and that's called hemoglobin H disease. You're going to have 3 genes that are now deleted in the alpha globin chain gene pool. So you're going to have 3 gene deletions, and this is going to present with moderate to severe microcytic hypochromatic anemia. These patients might be hypoxic. They may not be getting enough oxygen in their blood because they are not producing a good amount of hemoglobin. Now, what you can get is hemoglobin H, and hemoglobin H disease is usually going to present with excess beta globin production, producing B4 instead of A2, B2, whatever, alpha 2, beta 2, because you have such a decreased decreased alpha globin chain production. It's so low because you have deleted 3 genes. You're going to have low alpha globin chains. That's what's happening. All right, so let's just review really quickly while we're at it. You have now hemoglobin A1, you have hemoglobin A2, hemoglobin F, and now hemoglobin H. A1 consists of alpha, two alpha, two beta chains. You have in hemoglobin A2 two alpha chains and two delta chains. In hemoglobin F, you have two alpha chains, and then you also have two gamma chains. And in hemoglobin H, you have 0 alpha chains, but 4 beta chains. In these cases, patients are going to present with abnormal red blood cell production, and they're going to have extravascular hemolysis. Extravascular hemolysis. So what does that mean? Normally, your red blood cells are going to be circulating in your circulatory system, and if they are lysed or if they are broken down in the circulatory system, you're going to have intravascular hemolysis. Now, extravascular hemolysis is going to present when they get broken down in your spleen, because one of the functions of your spleen is to break down red blood cells. So these patients are going to present with splenomegaly. They will also have indirect hyperbilirubinemia and an increase in their LDH amount because of the extravascular hemolysis. Now, in this case, the treatment is going to be pretty simple. You can treat these patients with, it should say splenectomy, excuse me. It should say you can treat these patients with a splenectomy and blood transfusions to make sure they are getting the proper amount of hemoglobin, and so you can reduce their symptoms of microcytic anemia. So that happens. Hemoglobin H occurs with 3 gene deletions. Hemoglobin Bart's occurs with 4 gene deletions. All of your alpha chain genes are deleted, and this is going to be incompatible with life. These patients, or this is going to cause hydrops fetalis to occur in the fetus. They're not going to be able to develop properly, and eventually an abortion will occur, a natural abortion. Now, there are going to be no alpha productions, and you're going to have excess gamma globin production, and you're going to produce gamma 4. So let's just do a complete recap, okay? Hemoglobin A1, hemoglobin A2, hemoglobin F, hemoglobin H, and hemoglobin Bart's, HBB. So in these 3, hemoglobin A1, A2, and fetal hemoglobin, you're going to have 2 alpha chains. You're going to have 2 beta chains in hemoglobin A1. You're going to have 2 delta chains. 2 delta chains in hemoglobin alpha 2, A2, and then in hemoglobin F, fetal hemoglobin, you're going to have 2 gamma chains. HBH, hemoglobin H disease, you're going to have 4 beta chains, and in hemoglobin Bart's, you're going to have 4 gamma chains. That's what's happening. The way I like to think about it is, because this is a type of fetal hemoglobin, right? This is why you are producing the fetal, the second fetal globin chain more, because you have no hemoglobin you have no alpha globin chain production. You are only going to have the gamma globin chain production, and this is similar in my mind to HBH, hemoglobin H disease, but in a fetus, which means instead of beta, you're going to have gamma production, and that's the way I always remembered it.